Happiness is one of the deepest desires of human beings. Since ancient times, everyone has wished to live in joy, peace, and to avoid suffering and distress. But what is happiness? Do we truly understand it? Or are we just chasing something vague and fleeting? In daily life, when we talk about happiness, we often think of joyful moments, uplifting emotions, successes, or satisfaction from external things. It might be a gift received, a compliment, a friendly meeting, or an achievement after much effort. All these bring us temporary pleasure, making us feel good for a brief moment. However, according to the Buddha's teachings, that is not true happiness. Those pleasures are like flashes of light in the night sky, beautiful but fleeting, coming and going very quickly, not enough to soothe the soul over the long journey of life. Buddhism calls that pleasant feelings, a state of emotion we can call joy. Joy is temporary, with a clear beginning and end. Happiness is different. Happiness is a state of the mind that is serene, lasting, and not dependent on external circumstances. So what is true happiness? Buddhism teaches that true happiness arises from within each person's mind. It is deep tranquility, a right understanding of the impermanent nature of all things, and above all, letting go of attachments and ignorant desires that cause suffering. When we live in this understanding, our mind is no longer disturbed by the constant changes of life. We no longer base our happiness on things that can come and go, but find peace right in each present moment. It is wonderful to realize that happiness is not something distant, not a far-off destination, but the breath, the peaceful moments within our mind. There is a very meaningful saying in the Dhammapada: you yourself must strive, the Buddhas only point the way. This means that happiness and liberation lie within our own mind. In our own effort and practice, we can look deeper into the nature of joy and suffering to better distinguish happiness. Joy is the pleasant feeling when we get what we want, when things go smoothly, but it often comes with fear of loss. We fear the joy will not last, so we easily fall into anxiety and insecurity. Suffering arises when we do not get what we want or lose what we cherish. This is the cycle of emotions. Joy and suffering always alternate, like two sides of a coin. Buddhism calls this dukkha, which means suffering. But suffering here is not only physical pain, but dissatisfaction, worry, attachment, and inability to be fully content. Therefore, if happiness is only based on joy, it will also carry suffering. But if we find happiness elsewhere, not relying on fleeting feelings, we can escape that vicious cycle. So where is the source of happiness? According to the Buddha, it is the tranquility of the mind, peace of mind. A peaceful mind is one not stirred by desire, anger, or ignorance. That peaceful mind is nurtured by wisdom, the right understanding of reality, impermanence, and karma. With wisdom, we no longer blindly chase endless desires, no longer let ourselves be swept away by emotional storms. Our mind becomes free and peaceful amidst the impermanent world. Buddhists often practice mindfulness to maintain this awareness and tranquility. Mindfulness helps us return to the present moment, not drifting into past or future, not distracted by worries or troubles. When the mind is aware, we clearly know what we are thinking and feeling, and do not let negative emotions control us. This awareness is the foundation to build lasting happiness. However, the path to happiness is not always easy. In life, we face many challenges, temptations, and suffering, but those are opportunities to train our mind, to learn how to let go of attachments, to practice compassion and forgiveness. One of the Buddha's precious teachings is, there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. This reminds us that happiness is not a destination, a distant goal to seek. Outside, happiness is present in every step, every breath, every wholesome thought and right action of ours. Therefore, instead of chasing external things, let us turn inward, listen to our mind, distinguish truth from illusion. When our mind is freed from attachments, it opens a vast space of freedom and peace, like a calm lake without ripples. Our mind reflects the light of wisdom and compassion, bringing happiness not only to ourselves but to all beings. In conclusion, happiness is a serene, lasting state of mind, not dependent on external conditions. It arises from understanding, letting go, and mindful practice. In the next parts, we will explore the deep causes of suffering, how to transform it, and the practice path to achieve that true happiness. We have just touched upon the concept of true happiness according to the Buddha's teachings, a state of tranquility and peace of mind. But to reach that state, first, we need to understand the root causes of suffering, because suffering is the greatest barrier that separates us from happiness. Buddhism calls suffering dukkha, a term that carries a deeper meaning than physical pain or negative emotions. Dukkha includes all forms of suffering humans experience, from obvious pains such as illness, loss, and separation, to subtle sufferings like dissatisfaction, anxiety, disappointment, and an unavoidable feeling of discontent. The Buddha teaches that the root cause of suffering is craving and attachment, desire, and clinging to pleasant things. And fear of loss, a greedy mind always wants more, never satisfied, trapping us in a vicious cycle of suffering. Moreover, we tend to cling to impermanent things such as beauty, fame, wealth, or relationships without realizing that all are transient, always changing, and will eventually disappear. This ignorance of impermanence causes the mind to suffer. Through practicing the Buddha's teachings, we learn to observe these desires with mindfulness, recognize their impermanence, and gradually let go of useless attachments. This is the path to transforming suffering into peace. An important point in the Buddha's teaching is the practice of the Eightfold Path, 8 essential steps leading to liberation and true happiness. Among these 8 factors, some help develop wisdom, some help keep the mind pure, and some help practice rightly in daily life. Right view, understanding the true nature of reality, impermanence, suffering, and non-self, is the foundation for building one's spiritual path. With right view, we are no longer deceived by illusions but see through the nature of phenomena. Right mindfulness and right concentration help keep the mind clear, focused, and not swept away by chaotic thoughts. When the mind is calm, we can clearly observe arising feelings and emotions without being controlled by them. Practicing compassion and wisdom not only heals ourselves but also spreads happiness to those around us. When we love and understand others, our hearts expand, and happiness becomes deeper and more lasting. This path of practice is not one of compulsion or suffering but a path of freedom, gentleness, and clarity. We cannot avoid difficulties in life, but with wisdom and mindfulness, we learn how to face them without disappointment or losing direction. Like water flowing over stones, gradually wearing down obstacles, our mind can become clearer and more peaceful through each step of practice. When reaching this peaceful state of mind, we experience true happiness, a happiness that does not come from outside but from within. From understanding and letting go. Having identified the deep roots of suffering, we need to understand more clearly the true nature of happiness. Happiness is not a fleeting feeling, nor a momentary pleasure or external success. True happiness is an inner, lasting state of peace, arising from the harmony of mind and body. Wisdom and compassion. In Buddhist scriptures, many stories and parables emphasize that happiness cannot be bought with money or power, nor gained by chasing desires or fame. On the contrary, these cravings often lead to suffering because they create dependency and anxiety. Let us imagine a person trying to carry water in a sieve. No matter how hard they try, the water slips through and cannot be held. Similarly, if we seek happiness in external things like wealth, reputation, or praise, that happiness will not last because all things are impermanent and can be lost at any time. The key is to turn inward and discover the root of inner happiness. The Buddha called this the joy of letting go, the joy that arises when we release greed, hatred, and delusion, and let go of attachments that cause suffering. Letting go is not about abandoning life or values, but about liberation from dependence, bondage, and the suffering caused by craving. When we let go, we create space for our mind to be free, open, and light. In daily life, we can practice letting go by seeing things more objectively, not clinging to negative emotions or trivial matters. We also learn to accept reality as it is, without forcing or resisting it. A mindful and compassionate attitude helps us reduce suffering caused by false perceptions. We realize that everything changes, nothing is permanent, and therefore we no longer suffer from loss or change. True happiness grows when we live with mindfulness, appreciating each present moment, loving ourselves and others unconditionally. This does not mean avoiding negative emotions, but knowing how to face, understand, and transform them. Because when we accept and learn from every experience, happiness becomes a natural part of life. In summary, happiness is the result of practice, of inner transformation from greed and anger to compassion and wisdom. Happiness is not a distant destination, but a mindful and fulfilling journey every day. Having understood the true nature of happiness and the causes of suffering, the next step is to explore the path of practice to attain that happiness in our present life. Buddhism not only teaches but also guides us step by step in a clear and practical way to transform the mind and live in peace. That path is the Eightfold Path, 8 right steps that help clarify the mind, develop wisdom, and practice compassion in every action, speech, and thought. The Eightfold Path includes right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Starting with right view, we build a foundation of correct understanding about cause and effect, impermanence, suffering, and liberation. This insight helps us not be swept away by illusions and delusions, but see deeply into the nature of life. Right intention directs the mind towards wholesome, kind, and nonviolent thoughts. When we maintain right intention, our mind gradually becomes pure and stable. Right speech guides us to speak truthfully, gently, without causing harm or hatred. Pure speech creates harmony and trust in relationships. Right action means acting rightly, avoiding harm to ourselves and others. Living ethically and consciously helps us create good karma, sowing positive seeds for ourselves and the community. Right livelihood relates to how we earn our living responsibly and without harming other beings. Honest work not only brings peace but keeps the mind pure. Right effort is persistent effort to eliminate bad habits and develop wholesome qualities. Effort is the flame that lights the path of practice, helping us not to become discouraged or give up halfway. Right mindfulness is continuous awareness of every action, thought, and feeling. With mindfulness, we are not swept into chaotic thoughts but maintain calmness and clarity. Finally, right concentration is deep mental focus, reaching a state of steadiness and undistractedness. Concentration helps us see through the nature of phenomena and opens the gateway to wisdom. Through practicing the Eightfold Path, we not only free ourselves from suffering but also progress towards true happiness, a peaceful, pure happiness that is not shaken by life's ups and downs. Moreover, the Buddha emphasized the importance of compassion in meditation on the path to happiness. Compassion is unconditional love that expands the heart, overcoming selfishness and sorrow. Meditation is the tool to calm the mind, enhance mindfulness, and develop wisdom. Through meditation, we deeply understand the nature of mind, learn to let go of attachments, and live in the present moment. True happiness is not something distant or hard to achieve, but daily, moment-to-moment practice, with patience and faith in the Buddhist path. When we live mindfully, with wisdom and compassion, happiness naturally arises as an inevitable result. This is the precious gift each of us can give to ourselves and the world around. In today's ever-changing, pressured, and tempting world, maintaining true happiness is no simple task. We are often swept away by negative thoughts, anxieties about the future, or regrets over the past, leaving our minds restless and weary. However, The Buddha's teachings remain a guiding light for those willing to listen and practice. One of the most effective ways to sustain happiness is through mindfulness, living fully in each present moment. Mindfulness helps us pause amidst life's busyness, recognize emotions and thoughts passing through without being controlled or judged by them. From this awareness, we can choose wiser reactions, avoiding being caught in negative spirals. Mindfulness can be applied in small daily actions such as eating, walking, breathing, or listening. When we do everything with awareness and focus, we create a peaceful space within the mind. Alongside mindfulness, compassion is another crucial element to nurture lasting happiness. When we learn to love ourselves and all beings, we open our hearts and deeply connect with life. Compassion is not weakness or sentimentality, but an inner strength that helps us overcome difficulties, soothe wounds, and build inner peace. Through practicing compassion, we also learn forgiveness, forgiving others and ourselves. Forgiveness is not only liberation for the other but healing for our own hearts, allowing us to become lighter, free from the burdens of hatred or resentment. The Buddha taught, anger is like a fire that burns oneself. Thus, transforming anger into compassion is an essential path to maintain happiness. Another important point is understanding that happiness is not a permanent state but a continuous process. It requires patience, practice, and deep self-awareness. We cannot avoid life's difficulties or challenges, but we can choose how to face and overcome them with calmness and clarity. This is the profound meaning in the Buddha's teaching on happiness. It is not the absence of suffering but the ability to find peace amidst suffering. Finally, true happiness comes from living a meaningful life, with gratitude, sincerity, and genuine connection with those around us. Only then can happiness become complete, lasting, and capable of healing both the mind and body. One of the wonderful teachings Buddhism offers practitioners is the understanding of impermanence. Impermanence means that everything in life is constantly changing. Nothing is fixed or eternal. Realizing impermanence helps us let go of attachments and reduce suffering. When we know that happiness is not a permanent state but a fleeting experience changing every moment, we no longer cling to joyful moments as possessions. Instead, we learn to appreciate and live fully in the present, free from the past and future illusions. The journey of letting go is not easy because we tend to cling to familiar things, even if they bring pain or disappointment. But this is also an opportunity to develop wisdom and courage. Letting go does not mean abandoning life or caring less, but releasing worries, illusions, and attachments so the mind can be free and light. The Buddha taught that when we let go of the three poisons, greed, hatred, and delusion, the mind becomes completely peaceful, and true happiness naturally arises. Therefore, meditation on impermanence and letting go are important practices that bring us closer to genuine happiness. By observing each breath, sensation, and thought without clinging, we gradually develop the ability to release ourselves, no longer controlled by negative emotions or thoughts. Moreover, happiness in Buddhism is not only a personal state but also the spreading of love and peace to others. When we live with compassion, sharing and helping others, happiness becomes deeper and more meaningful. Buddhism reminds us that we are not separate from others but part of an interconnected web of life. Only by understanding this interconnection can we live fully, with abundant love, and realize that true happiness is the harmony between ourselves and the world around us. We often mistakenly believe that happiness depends on external conditions, money, fame, material things, or temporary successes. But Buddhism clearly teaches that all these are merely external causes, incapable of bringing true and lasting happiness. True happiness arises from within, from peace and clarity in the mind. When our mind is calm, free from greed, hatred, and delusion, we can feel happiness even amidst difficulties or challenges. Seeking happiness outside is like trying to draw water from a dry well. The more we try, the emptier it becomes. The more we chase it, the more exhausted we feel. Conversely, If we dig deeper inside, we find a fresh spring of endless peace and joy. A profound teaching in Buddhism is the understanding of the nature of the self, the ego. The I, greed, hatred, and delusion arise when we cling to the personal self, seeing ourselves as the center and clearly distinguishing me from others. When we let go of ego attachment, we open a great door to freedom and happiness. Without the limits and barriers of the ego, we can live openly, compassionately, and love unconditionally. The Buddha taught that understanding non-self, anatta, is the key to liberation from suffering and attaining nirvana, the state of ultimate peace. This does not mean losing oneself, but realizing that the self is not a fixed, unchanging entity but a temporary harmony of many factors. When the mind no longer clings to the self, we are no longer bound by suffering, anger, or hatred. Happiness then arises naturally, as an inevitable result of spiritual liberation. The important thing is persistent practice of mindfulness, compassion, and letting go in daily life. Happiness does not come from distant things, but from fully experiencing each present moment. Happiness, according to the Buddha's teachings, is not just a fleeting feeling of joy but a lasting peace, a deep calmness within the mind. To achieve this, we need to develop profound understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Buddhism advises us to practice not only through words or theories, but through persistent and practical application in daily life. Meditation is an extremely effective method to calm the mind, enhance awareness, and clarity. Through meditation, we learn to observe ourselves without judgment, recognizing emotions and thoughts passing by like clouds in the vast sky. This helps us avoid attachment and prevents being swept away by anxiety, anger, or sadness. Moreover, meditation nurtures compassion and forgiveness, not only toward others but also toward ourselves. Compassion is a great inner strength that helps us overcome suffering and hardships in life. Another important factor for maintaining happiness is gratitude. When we appreciate even the small good things, we generate positive energy within. Gratitude opens our hearts and allows us to live with contentment and joy. The Buddha taught that happiness does not lie in possession or control, but in letting go and acceptance. When we let go of endless expectations and desires, we experience true freedom and peace. Finally, happiness is the harmony of body, mind, and wisdom. When these three factors develop together, we can live a full, meaningful, and fulfilling life. When we deeply understand and practice the Buddha's teachings, happiness no longer remains a distant goal but becomes a natural state of living each day. This happiness is not bound by material things or circumstances, but is an inner peace and freedom. The Buddha showed us the path to true happiness, the middle way, avoiding the two extremes of indulgence and self-mortification. The middle way is a balanced path, harmonizing body and mind, letting go in effort, mindfulness and compassion. This path requires persistence and patience, because it is not always easy to let go of habits, negative thoughts, and deep attachments in the mind. But step by step, as we release, we find our mind lighter, more open, and love toward ourselves and others grows day by day. True happiness is when we are no longer controlled by negative emotions, no longer pulled by greed, hatred, and delusion, but live with deep understanding and awareness. It is when we realize life is a continuous flow, and each moment is an opportunity to learn, grow, and love. Buddhism does not promise a life without suffering, but teaches us how to transform suffering into creative energy and enlightenment. As long as we keep compassion strong and persist in practice, happiness will always be by our side as a faithful companion on the journey of life. And finally, happiness is the gift we give ourselves when we know how to love, forgive, and live fully in the present. Thus, true happiness is neither distant nor mysterious. It is the deep understanding and experience of every present moment. Happiness is the natural peace that arises when our mind is freed from ignorance and attachment. Buddhism has shown us a clear path to this happiness, the middle way. letting go, mindfulness, and compassion. Anyone can start this journey anytime by observing themselves, being mindful of each breath, action, and thought. When we live sincerely, when we know forgiveness and love, when we learn to let go and accept, happiness will come as an inseparable and dear friend in life. Let happiness no longer be an illusion or a distant goal, but become a sustainable and natural state of being in every moment. This is the priceless gift that the Buddha has given humanity, the gift of enlightenment and inner freedom. Walk this path with patience and faith, and you will find true happiness present in your own heart.